Representative Post.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the bill?
To the bill.
Thank you. I, first of all, too, want to thank the co-chair from this body for the hard work. I really appreciate it. I, as a radio guy, can't stand reading scripts, but I'm going to so that I don't go all Spock on you or anything. Colleagues, I don't serve on a budget committee. I don't serve on an education committee. But this bill before us today raises an issue that's near and dear to my heart. And that would be because I've spent the last 26 years of my life married to a public school teacher. And let me assure you, I have had quite the personal education about what is right and what is wrong with funding for our public schools. I want to be very clear. I support full and complete funding for our K through 12 education. I believe that HB 5017 will not, and I repeat, will not accomplish that. I've received, as you have, many emails and letters from concerned citizens, teachers, parents, talking about the inadequate education funding package that is being pushed through this building, and sadly, I have not been able to offer them much help. When two of my own superintendents in my district, the Newburgh School District and the Salem-Keizer School District, wrote to me, I wanted to relay their concerns to this body, and so I read to you. Dear Representative Post, I am writing to advocate for a funding level of $7.5 billion for K through 12 education this legislative session. Salem-Keizer schools would be losing $70 per ADMW at the current proposed funding level of $7.255 billion. We have an extended ADMW of $51,179, which means the total revenue loss to us would be $3.5 million at the currently proposed funding level. Our school district is still trying to rebuild after the massive cuts of $144 million from 5 or 6 years ago. The current proposed funding level will not give us the ability to make significant investments in our schools. It would not help us address overcrowding, aging facilities, old and failing technology, outdated instructional materials and technology, and many other key supports to education. Under this funding level, we will need to reduce critical reserve accounts to implement full-day kindergarten. We hope you will consider funding schools at $7.5 billion. At this level, we could fund full-day kindergarten, preserve programs that begin to lower class sizes. We could also begin to address overcrowding, old and failing technology, outdated instructional materials, and other aging infrastructure. The state expects more of our students in our schools than ever before. On behalf of the 40,000 students in Salem-Keizer Public Schools, I ask you to please consider funding the state school fund at $7.5 billion. Thank you for reading this letter. Thank you for your service to the students and families in our school district. Sincerely, Christy Perry, Superintendent, Salem-Keizer School District. Dear Representative Post, I have only been in the state of Oregon for 3 years, yet it is clear to me that we have a system of funding for K through 12 education that puts our students in our state at risk well into the next 3 decades. K through 12 education in Oregon is in jeopardy of taking 2 giant steps backward as you try to pass a $7.255 billion budget. You cannot have a thriving economy with subpar education funding. Please advocate for the children of Oregon by calling for a budget of at least $7.5 billion. Currently, under the status of Oregon's education system, Oregon has the lowest graduation rate in the country. Oregon is 49th in the nation in class size. Oregon students receive on average 1 instructional year less in their K through 12 education compared to the national average. Oregon spends about 88% of the national average per pupil K-12. Oregon is 46th in state education expenditures on K through 12. K through 12's share of the Oregon state budget has dropped 6% to 39% since 03-05. The state's economy is expected to grow by 11% in the next biennium. This is what $7.255 billion in K-12 funding would mean for our school district, Newburgh. Newburgh will receive $78 less per student next year compared to our 2014-15 funding level. It is nearly $2.84 million short of what Newburgh needs to maintain current programs, add full-day kindergarten, operate a full school year, and replace curriculum materials and outdated technology. The cost of implementing full-day kindergarten is not covered. We would have to consider cutting teachers or days of school. Our projected fund balance in 15-16, 16-17 would drop below 3%. The 626 aging student computers in our schools would need to be replaced, and our outdated technology infrastructure will have to last even longer. We are doing to children today, what we are doing to children today is going to impact Oregon and our economy over the next 3 decades. I am counting on you, Representative Post, to vote to invest in Oregon's future, and that starts with $7.5 to $8 billion investment in K-12 education for 2015-17. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Dr. Kim LeBlanc Esparza, Superintendent of the Newburgh School District. I also received this letter from a Newburgh School Board member.
One moment, Representative. Representative Whitsitt yields her time. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative. Dear Representative Post, I have been a member of the Newburgh School District Board of Directors for 12 years now, and during that time, the state of Oregon has always struggled to provide adequate and stable funding for the students of Oregon. Our children deserve an education that prepares them to compete with graduates across the nation and throughout the world. A $7.255 billion budget for K-12 education is just not adequate to educate our children. Please call for a budget of at least $7.5 billion. Thank you for your consideration, Representative. Regards, Misty Vondracek, Director, Newburgh School Board. All I am able to tell these educators and parents and superintendents in my district is this: I and my colleagues here hear you. We understand that full K-12 funding is absolutely vital. We have the money to fully fund education, and we want to start that funding at $7.5 billion. As I opened, I am married to a wonderful, beautiful, loving wife of 26 years who has been a public school teacher for 27 years as a special education teacher. She loves her job. She loves her students, and they are incredibly special to her. But I have watched her fight every year to match her increasing workload as her class sizes become larger and larger. I want to tell you something. This is shocking. This year, her class size has peaked. She is now between 45 and 48 kids, special ed kids, in her, not she sees them in a group setting in various different settings, in her classes 5 times per day. She teaches 45 to 48 kids in her classroom. Physically teaches 45 to 48 kids every day, 5 to 6 times a day, with no prep time, I would add. That's been taken away from her. They don't have time. While my wife is a wonderful teacher, and she's given every bit of herself to her students, like so many other teachers in Oregon, how can we possibly expect that our students, including our special education students, are receiving the kind of instruction and motivation they need to succeed in the classroom? My wife fills out reams of mandatory paperwork for the federal government and the state government, and it never lets up. She leaves our house every day at 6:15 to drive about a half a mile to work, and she gets home every night at 5 to 5:30, and that's not when she's volunteering as a basketball, football, volleyball coach, snack bar, whatever it might be. She doesn't necessarily want to be paid more, and I want you to hear that. She's not a teacher saying, I want more money. She wants help. She wants more teachers. She needs smaller class sizes. She needs we, the people of Oregon, to step in and say, what can I do to help you, Mrs. Post? What can I do to help our kids? Unfortunately, the members in control of this body do not share my opinion. Instead of making K-12 education a priority, they are squandering time and energy, which ultimately means money, on other things, putting our kids and our future at risk. Things like a flawed DEQ program, a costly motor voter system, and countless other pet projects that do nothing for those kids. Colleagues, K-12
Excuse me, Representative. Representative
Yes.
Reed, for what purpose are you in the queue?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would respectfully inquire as to whether the comments to the representative are germane to the K-12 budget.
Anything in particular, Representative?
I think impugning the motives of other members.
Representative, please be careful with your opinions of what we are and are not doing, because it could be perceived as impugning other people's motives here on the floor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a paragraph to go. Colleagues, K-12 funding should not be used as a pawn in a larger budget debate. Our kids' future should not be held hostage. Please listen to the hundreds of educators across the state and commit to fully and completely funding education. Please, I urge you to vote no on the inadequate solution that is House Bill 5017, and I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Further discussion?